Welcome back to the Pittsburgh Basketball Show. I'm your host, George Michalowski with Pittsburgh Sports Now. As you can see, bringing on a very special guest today, the second head coach in the city that's joining the show, Dru Joyce III. Dru, thank you for joining me, man.
And thanks for having me, George. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come sit with me.
How's it been so far, man? Tell me about it.
It's been fun. It's been what I imagined it to be. Like I said this during my press conference. It's just an opportunity that I've thought about and dreamed about since the age of 12 or 13 years old. Like being in a position to lead a program. I've always found the collegiate level interesting because I was attracted to March Madness and Big Monday on ESPN, Super Tuesday. So I've long fell in love with the game of college basketball, and this is an opportunity for me, like I said, to lead a program, but also to kind of share what my standards, my vision is, and also give the young men the experiences that I had during my college years that really molded and shaped me to who I am today.
Last year, I was in Annapolis for that game you guys played against Charleston at the Naval Academy. Remember, Kareem went off that game. It was an awesome win for you guys. But after the game, Keith brought you up onto the podium with him for a press conference. He did that numerous times throughout the year. And I've never seen a coach bring an assistant or an associate head coach up with him. How much did that prepare you, not just that press conference, but how much did Keith prepare you for day one as head coach?
Yeah, those are experiences that assistant coaches need.
Right.
And sometimes there's not enough of that in the room, and I do appreciate Coach Danbrock for letting me join and even asking me to join. He loves to have a friend next to him or a sidekick. So, but it was learning on the job, right? It was being able to sit there with him and watch how he answered questions, and took time to make sure that he was not only that he was respectful to the opponent, prepared in some ways for the next opponent, and also gave the media details and the attention that they needed. So I don't forget those opportunities. I don't take them for granted. It was, like I said, it was learning on the job in a different way, right? As assistant coaches, you may get some drills in practice that you get to do. You get your recruiting acumen, but do you get to handle the media in press conferences? Do you, there's other things. There's a long list of things, but I really I couldn't thank him enough for giving me those opportunities to kind of sit there with him and watch him through his experience, and also give me the floor at times too.
So you've known Keith since you were 12, 13 years old, played under him when you were a kid, in high school, in college, coached with him here. But when you played for him in high school, those first 2 years, was it? He then left and took the Akron job. And I remember watching more than a game, and you were pretty, devastated, I guess would be the word that I would say based on your reaction to the movie. How long did it take to build that relationship back up? And thinking back to that moment, like, how did that relationship get back to the point where it is today?
Yeah, it did. I won't say it took too long. Maybe a few months. I was upset. That's a true feeling that happened at the time. You as a young kid, you don't understand everything. I didn't understand what his dreams and aspirations were, what he needed to fulfill for himself. I only knew that me and him were set to go through this journey, for 4 years, and it didn't happen that way. So in that moment, I was upset. But as I, had a chance to sit back and reflect and really understand, like, man, he wanted the opportunity to be in college basketball again, and that was his chance. So, like, I would say about 5 or 6 months, and I didn't hold a grudge. I was able to forgive because he didn't do anything to hurt me. Right, at the end of the day, I was okay. I was fine. And the experience was still great. My dad took over the position.
Right.
So I had a chance to play for him a couple more years, and I can never replace those memories and that feeling of being able to play for my dad my junior and senior year of high school.
I want to ask you about playing for your dad. I mean, in that movie, in More Than a Game, he kind of talked about how he pushed you really hard. He wanted he expected perfection out of you, on and off the court. He said at times it felt more like a coach-player relationship than a father-son relationship. You're 20 years removed from that. As you clearly just talked about a bit, you seem to view that time playing under him in a different sense now. What was it like playing for your dad?
If you put me back in that moment, it was challenging. It was difficult. I didn't run from the challenges or try to shy away from them. Like, it just didn't always come together easy. It's one thing when you're at practice and you're playing for a coach and then you kind of go your separate ways. You go home, right? I went home with the coach. So like there was never an off switch. It was kind of like always on at times. But as I grew older and understood more, like I said, you just have a chance to reflect. The disciplines and the values he was teaching me, they were life values. They were life disciplines and habits. Although they revolved around basketball, there was things that did help me, that molded me and groomed me. So I don't look back at it with any ill will, any regret. If I had a chance to do it again, I would, because I think it was beneficial for where I am today.
So before I move on from that high school career, that time of your life, I gotta ask you about 7 for 7, that game. If you guys haven't seen it, Google Dru Joyce 7 for 7. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about here. What does that performance, coming off the bench, you were 5'2", as a freshman in high school, what does that performance say about Dru Joyce, the player?
It was just you have to put the hard work in, and you have to do it after hours too. When I think about that performance, I knew I could shoot the ball, but I accredit it to the 5:30 a.m. in the morning shooting, and I did it every day. We were fortunate at my high school to have a shooting machine, so I didn't need a rebounder. And either Coach Dambrot or my dad got me in the gym, and I knew what my role was. Right, I wasn't there to dribble and make plays. Coach Dambrot was very specific: shoot when you're open, defend and take care of the ball. So I knew exactly what my role was, and I knew that wasn't me as a whole, as a player. I was okay with that. I just wanted to do whatever I needed to do to have an opportunity to play and win. And what I did that day, man, I don't know if I could duplicate it.
Did you ever have another 7 for 7 game?
No. Matter of fact, I never did duplicate it, but I always shot the ball well. But when I go back to that instance, like, the first thing I think about is like, it happened because I worked hard, and and I was blessed to catch fire. But other than that, I can't explain it any other way.
Yeah. So reading up on you and listening to other interviews you did, seeing the movie, it seemed like your motivation when you were a player came from being the smallest guy on the court, came from being doubted, even laughed at in some of those games in high school. It doesn't matter how big you are as a coach. Like, you're heading into uncharted territory here as a head coach, first season. What is that chip on your shoulder coming from now? What motivates you as a head coach?
Yeah, well, I never knew I was small on the court. I never tried to feel that way or felt that way. But what motivates me as a coach is, trying to make sure, my players are at their very best, right? I know what they're capable of, right? Even at times when they're not living up to their potential and what they can achieve, I know that they have more. I know what they're capable of. They've shown me before. So the challenge is, like, how do I get them to go out there and try to get to be their very best and perform that way. And I want them to have success. I know what it feels like to win and win championships, and I want them to have that experience. I want them to be able to come back years from now to still be locked in as brothers and share in those moments. So, like, that is my motivation. I want them to be winners and understand what it feels like to win and go on a journey amongst each other, and find a way to figure it out.
100%. And you talked, you know what it feels like to win championships. You had an illustrious playing career overseas. I actually talked to a coach that coached against you in Germany before this interview, and he said about you, he knew how to use his brain to punish you. That was the part that stuck out to me in his scouting report of professional Dru Joyce in Germany. Is that a skill that you can develop, or is that something that you think you were born with and you learned from being around the game for so
long? I think there's a little bit of both. I think you can develop it, but I think there's some instincts that are involved in it too. There's some feel that's involved in it too. I'm not sure the ratio.
Yeah.
But I would say that my biggest thing is I tried to learn the game. Right, I really tried to be a student of the game, to understand the history of basketball. When I watch it, to not just watch the basketball, but see what's going on in the play, whether offensively or defensively. So I'm watching it to learn, and I think the biggest thing that's helped me is, I've been committed to being a learner. Like, I don't know everything, but I want to know more. Like, I continue to be curious, and I think that's helped me from the perspective of trusting my brain, knowing how to beat people with my brain, I guess.
100%. So I want to pivot to this year's team. I talked to Jake DeMichael this offseason, and he told me, he's like, look, last year was last year. Everyone in this locker room knows that this is a new season. We have new goals, new aspirations. We want to win the A10 again, sure, but we want to go further in the NCAA tournament. How have you seen your team, the returners specifically, put that behind them while also like celebrating it and understanding you can be proud of that? How have you seen them take that winning season in stride this year?
I think they know how to compartmentalize it, right? They understand what they did. They have that memory. They know what it feels like. But they also understand, like in the words of Jake, this is a new season, and in order to grab that hold of that feeling again, we have to tap into building, to how we progress each and every day. So it's been enlightening to see those return players really grab hold of the reins and take on leadership roles, and just accountability. At the end of the day, whether we've had a good practice, a great practice, or somewhat okay, you can see it. And I give them the floor. Hey man, what do you think? What do you think about today? And I allow them to speak. And in a lot of ways, they'll tell you exactly how they feel. And if we need to step it up tomorrow, then I can guarantee you that it's going to look different based on that message that they deliver.
So you're coaching a guy, Kareem Rosier, who last year Keith referred to in a press conference I was at as the best leader that he has ever coached. As a veteran of college basketball now, Kareem has got that to his name, that reputation as a leader in this program. When he's playing point guard, and I guess with your experience playing point guard, how important is it to have the leader of your team at that position, and how do you think he can be successful as a leader for your team this year?
Well, he has to continue to grow. The toughest challenge about being a leader in this environment is your team keeps changing. Right? So you get new people in the room, but it's also a plus. Like, it's also something to figure out. Like, hey, yeah, that was last year's team, but there's 6 new players on this team that you got to connect with, that you got to build a bond with, and he's been receptive to that. He extends his hands in order to bridge the gap and bring guys together, and you got to appreciate that. And he also has a beautiful mind for the game of basketball. He's not able to just deliver a message. He has a high understanding of playmaking, of being in the right spots, and being able to execute a game plan. So that always is a huge benefit for a coach, when you have someone who's going to have the ball in their hands quite a bit, that really has a true understanding of the strategic plan and also can be innovative and use his instincts because he thinks the game and can see things or plays before they even happen.
Talking about the newcomers a bit, how have they adapted to this program, and how have you seen them kind of immerse themselves in Pittsburgh and in the whole Duquesne community?
Right, I think their adaptation has been great so far, and the biggest thing is just their willingness. I think they've been willing to adjust and change. Because I've challenged them. I think there was habits that they needed to break, or habits that they had to adjust, and new standards and values and expectations. So it's been challenging. It hasn't been easy, but I think their willingness and their ability to want to buy in has been really good so far. And when you talk about the community in ways they've been able to show up and be a part, is they're getting out there. We've done things at the Children's Hospital. We've gone to some of the local rec centers, and they're proud to wear the Duquesne shirt, or Duquesne University across their chest, and they take pride in it, and that's important, because if they're taking pride in the school name, they take on this sense of ability that I don't want to let you down.
Right. I asked Jeff Capel this question. As we wrap up here, I want to ask you as well. You just talked a bit about the community, how your players are getting involved in the community. I want to talk about the basketball culture here in Pittsburgh. Like, football is the first sport that everyone talks about when they talk about Western PA, when they talk about Pittsburgh. But what have you seen so far? What do you think of the basketball culture in Pittsburgh, from the youth levels, high school levels, college level, and how do you think we can improve that?
I think we first off, I think it's growing.
Mm-hmm.
I was, you make calls and you talk to people, and I was talking to a trainer probably a year ago, and he was saying, man, we've had some of the most Division I basketball players in the area than we've had in a long time, and that's growth, and we got to appreciate it. And the next thing is, we got to connect. I think in order to grow a culture and sustain is, you got to connect, and it has to be real, right? It's great to come together for a coaches clinic, and you see 200 coaches.
Right, that was awesome.
In the room from the area. It's unbelievable, but you got to connect. We have to make sure that we check on those coaches as well, to see how they're doing, and also invite them into our program, because everyone wants to feel a part. And if you start to feel a part, then you start to take on a different care, a higher level of care. So I think the game is going to continue to grow. Basketball has always been popular. We have some great universities right here in the area, not only at the Division I level, but at other division levels too. And basketball has been played at a high level in the recent past, and in the far distance past. And I don't think Pittsburgh as a whole gets enough credit for things they've done in the basketball world, because if you peel back the layers, there's been some great basketball players that have come from this area, not only basketball players, but coaches too. There's been some great history, and especially recently too. Like, congratulations on last year, but best of luck this upcoming season, year one. There you have it, everybody. Dru Joyce, Duquesne basketball head coach. Thanks for tuning in.